Hello friends. Today we'll learn about the different market structure, which is oligopoly. So let's start. The best example of oligopoly I can think of is of Coke and Pepsi, that is in the cola market. So oligopoly means this is a form of market structure where there are few. It is not a complete monopoly in which there is only one dominant player in the market. There are few dominant players in the market. So there are a few interdependent firms in oligopoly. So what does this interdependency means? That interdependency means that your demand curve is directly impacted by the other competitors in the market which are also dominant players. For example, if Coke reduces the prices of the cola today, then Pepsi, it will increases the demand for Coke and decreases the demand of Pepsi. So your demand curve is directly impacted by the changes in price of your competitors, right? So in this case, if Coke decreases the price, then Pepsi will also decrease the price to match, so that it do not lose the customers to Coke. So this is a very important point in oligopoly, that the firms are interdependent. So prices of one firm impacts your demand and price of your product. Okay. Now coming to another point, the products in oligopoly market is can be differentiated or homogeneous. Usually they are close substitutes of each other, just like in our example, Pepsi and Coke are very close substitutes and are priced at a similar level in Indian market. And in oligopoly, there are high barriers to entry and exit. Since there are only few interdependent firms, there are very high barrier. If you try to innovate and create a new cola drink, then what will happen if you scale up your production, you become a fairly bigger player, then what happened? Coke and Pepsi will come and buy you out. So there are very high barriers to entry and exit in the cola market, right? So this you need to remember. And each firm has significant pricing power. As I said, there are few firms in oligopoly. Each firm has its own pricing power in its hands. Today, if Pepsi wants to increase their prices, it can freely do so. And if they are increasing the prices and there is one new innovative drink that they are launching, it may happen that their demand also increases. So they have a pricing power in their hand. They can decide at what price they need to sell in the market. And in oligopoly, there is some advertisement cost as well. Just advertisement cost is there in oligopoly so that they can inform the consumers of the some new innovation they are doing, or just that they do not lose the customers to to some newcomers in the market. For example, if Coke and Pepsi stop advertising today, then they will lose the customers to some new player who comes with a new product, and it's doing and spending a lot in marketing and advertising the product. Okay, so these are the features of oligopoly that we need to remember. The main one being there are few interdependent firms, but interdependency means that your demand curve is directly impacted by the price and actions of your competitors. Okay, now let's move on to understand the equilibrium condition, the pricing and quantity equilibrium quantity in oligopoly. There are different models that we will study, starting with first kink demand curve. Before starting with the concept of kink demand curve, let us first understand the concept of elasticity. So elasticity of demand. Okay, elasticity of demand measures the percentage change in quantity for 1 unit when we change the price by, let's say, X amount. So in the curve in right, you can see it is more steeper, right? It's more steeper, and the curve in right, it's more flatter. The curve in left is more steeper. This curve is steep, and this curve is flatter. Okay, so what happens? Let's say that we are operating at price P1. This price P1 is here. This is our quantity, this is our demand, and let's say this is our quantity at which we are selling our product. Okay, now if I increase my price from P1 to, let's say, P2, this is the increase in prices that I'm doing. then what happens is, just a moment. This is the current demand at which yeah, this Q2, my quantity reduces to Q2. We all know that demand curve is downward sloping. As you increase the price, you tend to lose the quantity demanded. If you want to sell more and more quantity, you have to you have to decrease the prices. Okay. So if you are increasing the prices, your quantity demanded reduces from Q1 to Q2. You see, with this much amount of change in price, the quantity is changing by this much amount, by the width between Q2 and Q1. In the similar case, in this diagram, let's say I'm operating at this P1, and at this P1, this is my quantity demanded. So what happens if I have a similar increase in price here also, let's say P2, and I draw my quantity demanded, then this is approximately Q2 is the fall in quantity when I increase the price by the exact same amount in the left curve. So what happens is, you see this difference is less comparative to difference here, right? This is difference of change in quantity demanded. That means the fall in quantity demanded for same unit of increase in price is less in case of flatter curve and more in case of steeper curve. So what this means, that the curve on left hand side, this one, so what this means, that the curve in left hand side, it is for same unit of increase in prices, quantity demanded is falling more. That means it is more elastic, more elastic, and the curve on the right hand side is less elastic. Why it is less elastic? Because for the same unit of increase in price, the quantity demanded is falling lesser as compared to the curve on left. Okay, so what we have learned here is that the steeper curve are more elastic and flatter curve are less elastic, or you can say are inelastic. Okay, so you need this is the concept of elasticity. You need to remember this. Now let us move to King demand curve concept. So what King demand curve say, that there is a kink in demand curve. The demand curve is not a linear downward sloping line. There is a kink in this demand curve. As you can see here, this kink, there is a kink in the demand curve, so, above which the demand curve above this price, if you are operating at this price where there is a kink, this price, this price is say P star, let's say. If you are operating above P star, then the demand curve above this price is more elastic, and the demand curve below this is more inelastic or less elastic. Okay, so what happens is, let's understand it with the help of example. Let's say today, if Coke increases the price of this product, which is the cola. Okay, so what happens is, it will lose some customers to Pepsi, and since the firms are interdependent, the Pepsi will not may not increase their prices. So what happens is, Coke is this is the equilibrium price. Coke has increased the prices, but Pepsi has not increased the prices. So what will happen is, uh, Coke will lose the customers to Pepsi. When Coke lose the customers to Pepsi, demand for Pepsi increases, right? So when Coke increases the price, let's say if it increases the price from P1, let's assume that they are operating at P1. If Coke increases the price from P1 to P2, then it was earlier operating at Q1, now it will be operating at Q2. There is a fall in quantity demanded, and it is losing customers to Pepsi. So the when it's operating at higher prices, the demand curve is highly elastic. But Another scenario is when Coke decreases the prices. Okay, so when Coke decreases the prices, since firms are interdependent, Pepsi in this case will also decrease the prices. So the change in quantity demanded will be relatively less if you are operating at a level below this king price. P star, if you are operating below, that means if you have reduced your prices, changes quantity demanded is less, because your competitor will also will also decrease the price, and your change in quantity demanded will be lesser as compared to if you are operating above the king price, that is P star. Change in quantity demanded is higher because the demand curve above the kink is elastic and the demand curve below the kink is inelastic, right? So this is our kink demand curve. What you need to remember here is that a demand curve above kink price is more elastic, and the demand curve below the kink is inelastic. This is what you need to, this is the conclusion of kink demand curve. Okay, now let's see one more thing, that because there is a kink here, and on the left hand side of kink, the demand curve is elastic, and on the right hand side of kink the demand curve is inelastic or less elastic. Because of the change in elasticity, there is a gap in MR as shown in the diagram here. So what is the if we draw the MC curve like this would be the equilibrium price if you are operating at MC, let's say MC1, and if you are operating at the price below this one, so here let's say there is a gap in MC here. This is MC2. Still, this is MC. MR equal to MC, and MC should be rising. This is the equilibrium price, and Q is the equilibrium quantity. So wherever there is a kink in demand curve, it is a location of equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Okay, you need to remember that. Why in kink demand curve there is a gap in MR? Why there is a gap? Because of on the left hand side there is highly elastic demand curve, and on the right hand side there is less elastic demand curve. Due to change in elasticity of demand curve, there is a gap in MR curve, and the wherever there is a kink in demand curve, that kink is the equilibrium price and quantity in case of this kink demand curve model. Okay, so we are done with this model. So let's start with another model, which is Cournot model of oligopoly. There are few assumptions in this model. First assumption is First assumption is that this model assumes there is a duopoly. What duopoly means, that there are only two dominant players in the market who produces the product and decides the price. Okay, so duopoly is a form of oligopoly in which there are only two dominant players in the market. Second assumption is the cost structure and the product is identical. They are selling similar product only, and the knowledge of the cost of the competitor is already available with the another competitor. So each competitor is well aware with the cost structure of the competitor, and the product they are selling is of same kind. And third and most important point to remember in this model is that the equilibrium price and quantity determined by Cournot model lies between perfect competition and monopoly. We have studied the how the price is determined in perfect competition. We will yet to study in monopoly, but the Cournot model states that the equilibrium price and quantity discovered by this model lies between perfect competition and monopoly. So let us understand this model with the help of a theoretical example. Let's say that there is one product, say product X, whose 100 units are 100 units are total demand in the market. Okay, this is total demand that market requires. Okay, and there are two players in this market. Let's say A and B. Since in this model assumes duopoly, only two players are operating. Let's say A fulfills 60 quantity and B fulfills 20 quantity in the market. Okay. Since total demand is 100, you need not to fulfill total demand. You need not to supply total demand of 100. So now one simple concept of demand and supply we will understand. Let's say demand curve is downward sloping. This is my demand curve, and supply curve is upward sloping. This is my supply curve. Okay. So how can any producer? This is the equilibrium price. So my question is, how can any producer change the price in the market? Okay. So what is the one thing that is in control of producer? It is the supply of product. So what happens if a producer increases its supply? When the supply is increased, the supply curve shifts to the right. This is my supply curve for increase in supply. What happens to my equilibrium price? My equilibrium price reduces. This is now the new equilibrium price. So my new equilibrium price reduces from P to P1. When supply is increased, the equilibrium price decreases. Now, another case is in which a producer can change the equilibrium price is by reducing the supply. When it reduces the supply, my supply curve shifts to left. Let's say this is my new supply curve when supply is reduced by producer. So my equilibrium price increases to quantity P2. This is my new equilibrium price. When supply curve decreases, the price increases. So you need to remember this relationship. When the producer increases the quantity, right, supply curve shifts to right and equilibrium price decreases. When producer increases the quantity, supply curve shifts to right and price falls. When producer decreases the quantity, supply curve shifts to left and the price of commodity increases. Now we are ready to go. So this is our first step where A and B are operating. They are fulfilling 80%. Let's say their total demand for market, they are capturing 80%. Okay. Now what A assumes that let us increase the price. So if they want to increase the price in market, they need to reduce the supply, right? So what A do? A reduces the supply to 55. Okay. And B is still producing 20. So now the total supply in market is 75. So since A has reduced the supply, what happens is due to reduction in supply, the price of a commodity increases and A is now earning abnormal profits. Okay. Now, when A is earning abnormal profit and the price of commodity increases due to reduction in supply, B is also earning the same profit. Earlier it was selling 20 quantity and now with increased price, B is also earning profit. So what B thinks to supply more quantity in the market. When B tried to supply more quantity in the market, let's say in this step, A is producing 55 only, B tries to produce more, it supplies 20, it increases the quantity supply by 5, let's say. So now the total quantity supply in the market is 80 again. Okay, because earlier due to increase in price, there was abnormal profit. B tries to take more share of profit, so it increases the supply. Now with increase in supply, the equilibrium price, what happens when there is increase in supply, the price reduces. So by changing the output of B, the equilibrium price reduces. Now A is not able to take too much profit, so the A's profit also decreases. So what A do to reduces the yeah. So what A do? A again reduces the try to increase the price by reducing the supply. So A again reduces the supply to 50, and B is still producing 25 quantities. Let's change the number now from 55. Let's say A is now producing. This change is obviously the example is purely theoretical. The change is not linear and we cannot measure the change. It's purely a theoretical example, which where I assume that A reduces the quantity to 45 and B is still producing at 25 level. Okay. Now the total quantity is supplied in the market is 70 units. Okay. Due to reduction in supply, the equilibrium price also increases. Okay. So this chain goes on. How long will this cycle goes where one producer is changing its quantity and increasing the profit level. Okay, this chain will go on till quantity supply by A will match quantity supply of B. Once this happens, there will not be any scope of changing the quantity and increasing the profits, right? So Cournot model states that this chain will go on till they reach this level where there is no change in profit by changing the supply. And one thing to note here is, since total demand is 100, you don't need to produce or to fulfill all the demand. The total supply would not be 50-50. Still, Cournot model works even if they reach the equilibrium quantity at 30-30, both the producer sees, then also the model works fine. Okay, this is a theoretical explanation how the Cournot model works. You just need to remember that the equilibrium price and quantity lies between perfect competition and monopoly. Okay, so this is it. Let's move on to another model now. So now let's start with another model in oligopoly structure, which is Stackelberg or dominant firm model. So what this model states is, in nutshell, it states that there is one dominant firm in the market which controls most of the market share. So a dominant firm is a firm, and there are another competing firms whose market share is very small and do not match with the dominant firm's market share. So dominant firm is the firm whose output is so large in the market that even if you sum up all the output produced by the competitors, it won't match the output supplied by dominant firm in the market. First, I want you to have a very close look at this diagram on the screen. The pink line here is the market demand curve. I'm highlighting it. This pink line is the market demand curve. The green line here is the demand curve for the dominant player or the market leader. The blue line is the MR curve for the market leader, and this line is the marginal cost curve for the market dominant firm or the market leader, and this blue line is the cost curve, MC curve, for the competitors. Okay, so what dominant firm model states that the prices in this oligopoly market are determined by the dominant firm, which is the market leader, and all the other competitors have to accept that price, which is decided by the dominant firm, and have to operate on that price only. Okay, it is assumed that in this model, the dominant firm has all the information about the cost and strategies of all the competitors, and it can predict where the marginal cost of all the competitors lies. You see, in this case, dominant firm has all the information about the marginal cost curve of competitors. It then add up the marginal cost for all the competitors and get this MC curve. This MC curve is the combined MC curve for all the other competitors. Because the dominant firm is the huge player in the market, it always operates at the lower MC than its competitors. As you can see in this curve, the marginal cost curve for dominant firm is lower than the MC of all the other competitors, right? This gives them complete pricing power in the market. And if you look closely at the market demand curve, the pink line, which is the market demand curve, at lower prices, somewhere here, you see the gap between market demand curve and dominant firm demand curve is decreasing because they are only able to operate at lower prices, and none of their competitors are able to compete at such lower prices because they will be forced out of the market if they start operating at the lower prices. Now let us look at the equilibrium condition. Equilibrium condition states with that MR is equal to MC and MC should be rising. This is the equilibrium condition for the dominant firm. This At this demand curve, dominant firm operates at price P and quantity Q. Okay, so this is the price that is fixed by dominant firm, and all the players have to operate at this price only. This price, this is the quantity that competitors will supply, and QL is the quantity that the dominant firm or the market leader will supply. Okay, so what happens is If in short run, any competitor tries to reduce the prices and tries to compete with dominant firm. In short run, we are talking of short run only. Short run, the chain is like this. Competitors try to reduce prices. What happens? It may gain market share for a moment, but then since the firms are interconnected in oligopoly, what dominant firm will do? Dominant firm will also reduce the prices. So in short run, the market share gained by the competitors by reducing the prices. After a while, dominant firm will also reduce its prices and it will recapture the lost share. And as the prices are dropped by dominant firm, the customers will move to that one. So in long run, what happens if small firms try to compete on the basis of price, they tend to lose market share, because in long run, what dominant firm will do, they will reduce the prices, and it is very difficult for short run to survive. So what happens is, if you try to compete, if the competitor try to compete with dominant firm, they will tend to lose market share in a long run. If they want to compete with dominant firm, then they have to compete on other factors like innovation or better technology. Okay, so the conclusion of dominant firm model is that the price is determined by the dominant firm alone, and all the other competitors have to accept that price and have to play with and have to operate on that price only. Plus, one more thing, if they try to reduce the cost, if competitors try to reduce the cost, they tend to lose market share in long run. So you are not able to operate at lower cost only, because if you competitor reduces the cost, dominant player also reduces the price. If you try sorry If competitor try to reduce the prices of the products, then what dominant player will do, they will also reduce their prices, and this will lead to increased losses of the competitors. Okay, so this is all about Shackleberg or dominant form model. Now the last model, we move on to Nash equilibrium. So Nash equilibrium in oligopoly tries to find out one optimal solution. It tries to find the optimal solution so that all the players in the market benefits to the maximum. Okay, so here in this example, there are four quadrants. In this rectangle, you can see these are the four quadrants. The rectangle is divided into four quadrants. In our example, I've assumed these things, and there are only two firms as of now, A and B. I've assumed this. It can be applied to more player as well. Duopoly is not a condition. And I've assumed that for A and B, both have two strategies. Okay, high price and low price. These are the two strategies they can follow. So I've made the few scenarios on the basis of this. So if you look at this first quadrant, which is this area, you will see it is a scenario where A is charging high price and I assume earning the profit of 600. Okay, and B is charging low price and earning a profit of 700. In second quadrant, I assume A, when charging high price, is earning 1000, and in this quadrant I have placed, if B is also charging high price, B is earning 600. Okay. In third quadrant, A is charging low price and is earning 160, and B is charging high price and is earning 0. No profit, no loss. And in the last quadrant, A is charging low price and earning 100, and B is charging low price and earning 140. Okay, so our goal here is to find the quadrant which maximizes both the producers, which are A and B, and it's the optimal solution. Okay, so how we are going to do it, we need to follow some rules. And the rule is, a producer can shift from one quarter to another quarter only if two conditions are met. Very important rule. What are the two conditions? First, there should be change in strategy. Should be change in strategy. And second is the profit should increase. Should increase. So you just need to keep these two rules in mind while finding the Nash equilibrium condition. If you are moving from one quadrant to another, your profit should increase and there should be a change in strategies. So let us start. Let me start with this quadrant now. If both, and listen to me very carefully in this, we are assuming that this is the equilibrium. So is this the optimal situation for both A and B? When A is when A is A strategy is low price and is earning 100, B strategy is low price and earning 140. Is this the optimal condition? No, because if A tries to move here when it can charge high price and earn 600. And one more thing, we will go one player at a time. Okay, we don't look at both A and B. We try to look from one player, one producer. We try to find out the maximum condition for A, and then we will look where B wants to operate. So right as of now, I'm only looking for from A's perspective. Okay, so is this the quadrant where A is earning maximum? No, because A is with a lower price earning 100, and in this quarter, if A moves to this quarter, A's A strategy is changing. Yes. A's profit changing. Yes. So A would like to move to this quarter only, right? This is the equilibrium condition. Just a second. Yeah. This is the equilibrium condition for A. Maximum. Okay. Wait. A is earning 600 with high price here. Now, is this the maximum profit for A? No. If A moves from this to this quarter, it earns more than 600, right? It earns 1000. But will A go to this quarter? No. Why not? Because the strategy is not changing. If this both these conditions are not meeting, na, then you cannot change the quadrant. So A cannot move from this quadrant to this quadrant. It is not possible because strategy is not changing. So this is the equilibrium quadrant for A. Okay, now let us move to B. Is B is in equilibrium quadrant? Let's see. In this quadrant, B is with strategy lower price and is earning 700. Is this the optimal condition for B? If B tries to move from this quadrant to this quadrant, is it a good move? No. First thing, there is no change in strategy. So B cannot move to this quadrant, and additionally, B is earning less profit here. So this jumping from first quadrant to fourth quadrant is not a good. Okay, now let's see if B wants to move to second quadrant. See, there is a change in strategy. So first condition is met. Here B strategy is high price, but is the profit increasing? No, the profit is reducing. So B would not like to operate in second quadrant. So this is first quadrant is our Nash equilibrium, where the condition is fit for both A and B. If now let's see, if we have started from fourth quadrant and reach first quadrant, right? Now let us see if we start from another quadrant, then what happened? Let's start with second quadrant, where A is earning high price and B is A is with strategy high price and is earning 1000, and B is with strategy high price and earning 600. Okay, so see, A is with strategy high price and is earning 1000. This is good for A. Would A like to move to first quadrant? No, because strategy is not changing and the profits are less. So A would like to operate in second quadrant only. But what with B? B is with high price earning 600. Would B likes to switch to this quadrant? Yes, because there is a change in strategy and there is more profit for B. So B would like to operate in this quadrant. Okay, this is the optimal quadrant for B and this is the optimal quadrant for A. So now what happens if, since we have made a quadrant, if B is following strategy low price and earning 700, then A would have to, if it's following high price, it will have to earn 600 only. It cannot happen that A would operate in this quadrant, because the players are interdependent. So A is not changing strategy. His strategy will remain same. H high price is the strategy that A would follow, and A have to operate in first quadrant only, because B is operating here. If A moves here from 600 to 1000, then B have to operate here. B also have to charge high price, because you cannot move out of the quadrant randomly. Okay, you have to follow the rules. If second quarter is designed in the way that A and B both are charging high price, then you have to stick with the profit that you are getting with high price. If B is charging low price, then A cannot change the strategy. So it has to stick with high price only and will earn 600 in the first quadrant only. I hope it's clear to you. So this is the concept of Nash equilibrium. Here the very important concept is, let me just change the color of the pen. Collusion. Collusion. You might heard of OPEC, which is oil producing countries cartel. What oil producing countries do, they form a cartel and try to have the control of oil prices all over the world by changing the supply, right? So you see, first quadrant is our Nash equilibrium, where A is earning 600 and B is earning 700. I'm only talking of profits now. Now, what happens if A and B collide with each other and say we both charge high price? If they want to, what's the arrangement? That A will earn 1000 and B will earn 600. But if they both collide and A says, let me give you 150 out of my share, okay, and B gains 150. If this happens, they both charge high price. uh, if they both charge high price, they will move into second quadrant. From first quadrant, where B was charging low price, if they collide with each other and B also started charging high price, they will move to second quadrant, where B's profit is 600. Okay, so what A does is, A says, A pays 150, let's say $150 to B. So A share is 850 and B's profit is 750. In this way, you can see this was a Nash equilibrium condition where A was earning 600 and B was earning 700. But if they collide with each other, have the mutual agreement, and they share the profits in such a way, then it is profitable for both A and B. A is getting 850 and B is getting 750. It is profitable for both of them. So this is the concept of collusion that can happen in Nash equilibrium. So are there any conditions for collusion? When does so question is, when this collision arises. So what are the conditions for the collision to happen? Okay, so there are few conditions. First, there are small number of firms operating. The larger the number of firms, the larger the players in the market, it is difficult to collide because the market share is relatively lesser. If there are two firms, let's say there are two firms in the market, it's duopoly. The market share for each firm is 50-50, right? If there are four firms, then market share is 25-25. Collision becomes difficult when the number of firms increases. Okay. Second condition is, when collision can happen, when they sell similar products. How is the OPEC countries having the cartel? What they sell? They only sell oil, crude oil or petroleum. So they all sell the same oil. They all sell similar products. Okay, that is why their collision becomes easy. Third condition, they all have same cost structure. If they have same cost, then they all operate near the same equilibrium price and quantity. Okay, similar cost structure, and fourth condition is they all do less number of purchases. If the producers need to purchase raw materials multiple times in a year, then it becomes difficult to collide. But if they have to purchase the raw materials one only, the raw materials or the goods that they want to sell, if, if they have to purchase it lesser time, then the collision becomes easy. Okay, so this was all about Nash equilibrium, and with this we have covered our oligopoly. In next video we will cover monopoly. Thank you.